Hey y'all, this episode involves discussions about murder, sexual assault, and child abuse, and involves foul language that some listeners may find offensive and may not be appropriate for children under the age of 13. Listeners' discretion is advised. Hey y'all, she's Christina.
She's Mary.
And this is
True Crime Down Yonder.
guys.
Hello.
Because it is the evening. It's not the day this time.
Yeah. Get it in where we can fit it in. Pretty much.
In more ways than one.
Yeah.
No, we're a little late than what we were trying to record this week, and that's okay because it happens, right?
It does.
What else has been going on in the world besides the Derek Chauvin case?
I don't know. I keep getting these notifications about Derek Chauvin, but don't really know much else that's going on in the world.
Yeah, I know.
Probably should. I've been busy.
Justice was served.
Yeah.
Definitely. Christine and I are both supporters of Black Lives Matter. We won't really say too much about that because we really want to try to make this not a very political podcast.
Right.
But yeah, we're happy of the outcome, and we hope that brings some kind of closure to the Floyd family.
Yeah. They've been pretty dignified throughout this whole thing, so.
They have.
Hopefully they get some peace of mind.
Absolutely. And they are in our thoughts. One other thing I wanted to add, make sure that you're rating us on Google Podcasts.
Apple Podcasts.
Did I say Google? Apple?
Yeah. We're on Apple now, so you can get on there and rate us. Let us know what you think.
Yeah. Tell us what we could be doing.
Because I don't know of any other platforms that allow you to do that. I think Audible does.
Yeah,
but
Audible does.
I'm too poor to afford Audible. I don't have Audible. So,
actually, that's where we're getting most of our listeners from is Audible.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah. So
I just don't, I pretty much subscribe to everything else. I just don't have Audible. I've thought about getting it so I could listen to books, so wouldn't have to actually read them.
I actually originally had just downloaded Audible so that I could get the Damien Eccles book that he wrote, Life After Death.
Oh,
and it is so good, by the way. I mean, this has nothing to do with what we're talking about today, but that is a great book.
Damien Eccles, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I follow him on Instagram.
Yeah. And I like Damien Eccles.
I do. I like him. He's cool.
Yeah. So, it's terrible what he went through, too. And hopefully one day we'll talk about that. Christina doesn't really want to cover that case because she feels like it's overdone.
I do. Well, I just feel like it's just one of those very... well-known cases, I guess, is the word for it.
Yeah, and it's been beat to death, I know.
I've listened to a few different podcasts on it. Probably haven't listened. I know I haven't listened to all of them that cover that case, but also I've seen all the Paradise Lost. I've seen a lot of different documentaries on it, and it is a very interesting, in-depth case, and I think we're discussing doing it, but it's something that you can't cover in an hour. There's so much shit to that case, and so it would probably take us 2 to 3 parts.
It would definitely take at least 3.
I just don't know if I want to spend that much time on it, seeing as how everybody already knows the story. But, we'll discuss it. We'll see what we're going to do.
I just want to do it just so I could talk about it, though. I mean, it's the same. You're right. It's the same information that everybody already knows.
Yeah.
But his book is really good. He doesn't want to be known as part of the West Memphis 3. That's one thing he doesn't want to be known as the rest of his life, which I understand.
Yeah, unfortunately, he probably will, but...
I know, but...
Yeah.
I'm glad that it didn't completely ruin his life. It did there for a long time.
Yeah. Got him out of fucking Arkansas, though.
Oh, yeah. I think he left Arkansas like the day he got out.
Yeah, I don't blame him at all. Like...
I think him and Jason Baldwin don't even go back through there unless they have to.
No offense to Arkansas, but what they went through and their childhoods, I don't blame them for getting them out. I don't blame them for getting out.
Absolutely.
But anyway, okay, let's move on to what we're actually going to talk about today.
Yes. So we're covering the conclusion and last part to the Sharon Marshall, Michael Hughes, and Cheryl Commesso case. Now, on our last episode, we left off where Sharon had already had one child and she put it up for adoption. She gave it to a nice family of doctors that were in Texas. And she ended up getting pregnant again, and she gave birth to her son, Michael Anthony Hughes, on March 21st, 1988. In this episode, we're going to get a little bit into who Sharon was and who Warren was. So, yeah. And I think right before we ended the episode, we did cover that they had changed their names. To Tanya Tadlock, Warren changed his name to Clarence Hughes.
Right. Yeah. Same creepy fuck, different name.
Got it. Same asshole.
Got it.
Almost a month after Sharon had Michael, the Marshalls moved to the Tampa Bay area. Sharon, now Tanya, began working at an adult club in Tampa called the Mons Venus.
Okay. That's that's like the Mons pubis.
What?
Anyway.
The pubis?
It's female genitalia. But anyway, yeah, moving on. Mons Venus. Got it.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, look it up.
Okay. Well, this was a place called Mons Venus. Tanya then met another young lady that was around her age down there. She was also a high school dropout, and she was an aspiring dancer. So this was 18-year-old Cheryl Commesso. Cheryl was from Brandon, Florida. She once attended Brandon High School, where she sang in the chorus and she danced. In 1987, Cheryl competed in the Miss Brandon pageant. She was explained as being a good girl, but her parents stated that once she began her senior year, she was a wild child and began running away, and that's when she decided to drop out of high school. After she did that, she ended up moving in with her dad. Now, her parents were divorced. You don't really know too much about her mom, but she did live with her dad while she was down in Tampa. She worked in several nude bars between Tampa and Miami. She also worked at a place called World's Famous Dollhouse.
Ew.
That's in Orlando.
Do they sell like creepy porcelain dolls?
That was the first thing that came to my mind, but no, actually it's an adult club. It's another kind of strip club, I guess.
I don't like that.
I know that her father helped her get a loan to purchase her dream car, which was a red Corvette.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's a high-end car right there.
Everybody
That's
said...
a lot of lap dances.
Hell yeah, she was busy. Everybody said that she loved her car more than anything. She had also made enough money to get her breast implant. That was like a big thing too. She was her dream was to be a Playboy model, to pose for Playboy. So Tanya and Cheryl, of course, they had started hanging out like friends. They were younger girls. And, well, Tanya was getting welfare. She wasn't reporting her income as a dancer, and she was receiving welfare. There was speculations that Clarence and Cheryl were having sexual relations too. Yeah, he tended to sleep with some of her friends.
Mess with anybody that would mess with his nasty
He was just a pervert. That's all he was.
Nasty toad of a man, a horny toad. I do not like this Clarence Warren man. Do not like him, Sam. I am. Go on. Go on.
So I don't really know what brought this up, but apparently Clarence accused Cheryl of reporting Tanya's income, like the failure of Tanya reporting her income to DCS, saying that she wasn't reporting like the tips and stuff she was making from the bar.
Okay, so she was losing her benefits.
Yep, they cut her off for misstating that her income to the state. So Clarence had attempted to confront Cheryl in the parking lot of the Mons Venus, where witnesses said it had gotten physical, and Clarence actually punched her in the face.
The fuck?
And the bouncers had to come out there and pretty much get involved.
I wish the bouncers would have, I don't know, got too involved.
I feel like a lot of people should have got more involved with him, but he
should have been hit by a truck.
He gives me that feel of one of those kinds of guys that he'll fight a woman, but when it comes to a guy, he'll be like, oh, let's talk about this. We don't have to fight this out. Yeah, I feel like he wouldn't fight a guy, but he'd beat on a woman. That's just the vibe I get off of him.
Yeah.
About a week or so later, in April of 1989, Cheryl left her father's house in Tampa, and she had told him that she was just going to spend the night with a friend. She said that she promised to call him the next morning, but that call was never made. Her Corvette was later found in an abandoned parking lot, and her parents filed a missing persons report, and nobody heard anything of Cheryl for years. Reportedly, her mother called Mons Venus, and it's just so fun to say sometimes, Mons Venus. When she called and asked, hey, have you guys seen her? They said that she was probably working at some clubs down in Miami, that she should probably check there because they hadn't seen her. And that's the last kind of little bit of information she got. Clearly, she wasn't in Miami. Pretty much her family spent years not knowing where the hell she was.
Okay. Well, where was she?
Well, naturally, because the dancers at the club knew that there was tension between Clarence and Cheryl and Tanya. And so, of course, they reported to police what had happened in the parking lot the week and a half prior.
Right.
There was nothing they could really do. Right after Clarence and Tanya, they dipped. Like, right after that happened, after she went missing, they left. And they automatically became persons of interest, but they were never able to locate them. Yeah.
So where are these, I won't say anything bad about Sharon, Tanya, whatever her name is, but where'd this toad go? Where'd they go?
They ended up going right to New Orleans. New Orleans.
He belongs in a swamp. Because he's a nasty,
I don't know.
icky toad.
I don't know if they actually, like, lived there. If they did, they literally probably only lived there for, like, 2 or 3 weeks.
Okay.
But they stopped in New Orleans. I can't ever say it right. New
Orleans.
Nolans.
Nolans.
There we go. In Nolans. And they got married. So now she's Tanya Hughes.
Jesus. And if you all recall, this was her dad.
Yes, this is her dad.
Ugh.
But now, that's gone now because they're brand new people.
No. No, it's not.
Nobody really knew about the whole backstory. It took years to put all this
yeah.
together. Right after they got married, they moved to Tulsa. Tanya became a dancer at a Tulsa club down there called Passions. Many of the workers there discussed Tanya as a really sweet girl. The workers in that club, they said that she was so different from everybody else because it was almost like most of the dancers, they had criminal trouble, they had drug problems, all sorts of stuff. Tanya, she didn't drink. She didn't even smoke cigarettes. Okay. She didn't do any of that. They thought it was so bizarre. Like, what is a girl doing like this here, working here? Because they literally said she would, in her spare time between sets, she was reading a book or she was knitting. She was knitting a hat for Michael or something. She was always doing stuff like that.
Okay. Well, I mean,
while the girls in between sets are usually snorting a line of coke, she's in there reading a book.
Yeah. Well, I mean, nice girls strip too. It's a means to an end. If you're trying to do something with your life, and they make quite a bit of money, so I can see.
I think where they were pointing more towards was she was doing it for Clarence.
Yeah, she probably was. Nasty bastard.
Yeah, because that's what he
father
was into.
Husband.
Yeah. What did we call it? Husdad?
Husdad?
Yeah, was it Husdad or Dad's? I don't remember.
Dadsman?
I don't know. We put it together last time.
Yeah, those two things should never, ever be put together.
Absolutely not.
Anyway.
So they said that, like, she had gotten breast implants, but they looked so unnatural for her body. Like, it was, they explained it as almost looking like a cheap job being done.
It probably was.
They explained it by quote in the book. It looked like 2 oranges squirting out milk.
Huh?
It was this little petite body with these big...
Oranges aren't that big.
Well, apparently these were. I mean, I don't know. But they said that they were just really round and hard. That's what they said it was.
Oh, yeah. She probably did get a cheap job done. Yeah. Oh, poor girl.
Yeah.
That probably hurt.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there was another lady that worked in the club. She was one of the lead dancers, and she seemed to be the closest to Tanya out of all of them. Her name was Connie. Connie would mention that she would notice these black and blue bruises all over her arms and legs. She knew that her husband, Clarence, was just not a nice guy. She also stated that Clarence had a rule for Tanya that if she didn't bring home $200, at least $200 a night, she would pay for it one way or another.
Oh.
And literally, she's watched this girl freak the fuck out.
She didn't make
$200. And the next day she came in, the whole side of her face was swollen.
What the fuck?
So after that, they kind of like, if she didn't make $200, they would kind of like try to put money towards it so she wouldn't get her ass beat, pretty much.
Oh, God. And so not only is he her father and her husband, but he's like her pimp now?
Yeah.
This is so fucked up. And I mean, strip clubs, I don't know. I don't frequent a lot of them.
Yeah.
But I could see how you would make a ton of money like on a Friday or Saturday night, but you're probably not going to make $200 on a Wednesday. I mean, that's when everybody's in church.
Well, here's the thing. They said that Tanya would work every day that bar was open.
Okay.
Every day. He forced her to work every night.
And what the fuck was he doing through all this? Was he doing anything to bring
Nope. He claims he was
in?
a painter. And Tanya Sharon, whatever, while she was still Tanya, she would write letters to her friend Jennifer still.
Okay, yeah.
As Sharon, of course. And in one of these letters, she had told her he's decided that he's going to retire because he fell off a ladder and hurt his back.
Okay, because I'm sure he had a great 401k.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah,
to
he had
live
insurance
off
and
for
everything.
the rest of his
right?
life. Okay.
He's a piece of shit. But yeah, no, she's the
I
one
want to
pulling
retire
all the
too,
money.
Clarence. I mean, unfortunately, I don't have any money.
Clarence.
Unfortunately, I don't have any money. But I mean, I would if I could.
I would love to retire today. Tanya would work like every night to the point where Connie recalls Tanya falling asleep on a client's lap while she was performing a private lap dance. She actually said she had to go over there and nudge her.
Oh, that's
because she was exhausted.
Yeah.
It was amazing to me how bad he treated her. To the point where Connie even said that there's times where, like, they would talk to her. They would sit down and they would talk to her and be like, listen, you need to leave this piece of shit. Like,
right.
She was very private about her life. Everybody that's ever known her she's very, very private. And so she didn't share too much of, her background.
Yeah. Anytime you can't blame her. I mean,
anytime she ever talked about her parents, they'd ask where her parents were she would just say they were all dead. And that was it. Connie, she also kind of she had another job. She worked at TJ Maxx down in Oklahoma City. Okay. So she said that Tanya, Clarence, and the baby, Michael, they would come and visit her on the during the week if she was working out there. And Michael was very attached to his mother, Tanya. Yeah. And she was very good to him, but he was very standoffish with Clarence, with Dad. Like, I guess he would try to hold his hand, and the baby would be like, no. Like, he would reach for mommy.
Well, the baby, he sounds smart.
Yeah.
Fuck no, you're a pervert toad, Dad. Dad, granddad to dad.
Granddad to dad.
Whatever he is, God.
Daddy, granddad.
Daddy, granddad.
This is why we picked this. This is fucking... country bumpkin bullshit.
Sad. It's really sad, but anyway.
But listen. We're gonna. Okay, there's gonna be more that comes to this. I promise. But anyway,
they would go to TJ Maxx.
TJ Maxx.
TJ Maxx. Okay.
I just threw that.
I need to make a trip to TJ Maxx. I love me some TJ Maxx.
I'm a Ross person. I do like TJ Maxx.
I like both, but yeah, I want to go back to TJ Maxx, so we need to make a trip there sometime.
Yeah.
This week. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah, for sure. But anyway, she made a statement to Tanya right in front of Clarence. You made me think about TJ Maxx. Right in front of Clarence.
Right in front of the clearance rack with Clarence, the horny toad.
She made a statement in front of Clarence telling Tanya that you need to leave this motherfucker alone. And Clarence replied, if the bitch left me, I'd fucking kill her.
Oh.
Yeah.
And then a truck should have come by and ran over him.
Well, unfortunately, that didn't happen to Mr. Old Horny Toad Clarence. In late April of 1990, Tanya was walking from the store back to her motel room, and this was right outside Oklahoma City, when she was allegedly struck by an unknown vehicle that fled the scene.
No, that car was for Clarence.
I'm pretty sure that car was clearance. Pretty sure that car
No,
was
but it was
clearance.
supposed to run over him, not her.
Yeah, we wanted to keep Tanya or Sharon. I wanted to keep her. She seemed like a nice girl. But she was put in the ICU at the Presbyterian Hospital in Oklahoma City. So when she was put in the hospital, they said that her husband, Clarence, did not seem very much worried. He wasn't really interested on
Clarence only cares about himself.
Clarence only cares about Clarence and all his other pals. That's with him.
Himself, yeah.
His identities. Because he has a few of them. But they said he wasn't in any kind of hurry to rush by her side or hold her hand or anything. The only thing he asked the staff was for a blank sheet of paper and a marker so that he could write on it, "No visitors allowed," and post it on her door.
Uh-huh.
And that was it. He didn't come back for like 2 or 3 days.
Okay. So nobody else can visit her, but he's not going to visit her?
Yeah, he's not going to visit her. He doesn't want anybody else to visit him. So, but he did that for a reason. He actually ended up calling Passions the next day, telling the owner that she wasn't going to be back to work anytime soon. And
that's like the least of everybody's concern.
Well, they automatically knew when they got that phone call. They were like, he did this.
Yeah.
Like, off top. Now, I forgot to mention this. Before this happened, literally a couple of days before this happened, Tanya had been seeing this guy that was working at the club as a bouncer. His name was Kevin Brown. Kevin was a younger guy. He was only about 23, 24 at the time, so he was only about 4 or 5 years older, about 4 years older than she was.
Okay.
He seemed to be a decent guy. She was really about to get out of her relationship. She was planning on taking Michael and going with Kevin, and they were going to skip town and start a new life.
Okay. Because it didn't work out with the last guy that she did that with.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So somehow or another, Clarence found out. I don't know how he found out. It's still unknown to this day.
Because Clarence doesn't do a motherfucking thing
except worry about Tanya.
Obsess about this girl. I mean, he doesn't have a damn job.
That's what everybody said. He was extremely obsessed with her. Even after everything, he was still obsessed. He's still obsessed with her. So she had plans on leaving his ass behind, thank the Lord, but unfortunately she didn't make it that far. So after Connie heard about what happened to Tanya, her and Kevin decide to go visit Tanya in the hospital. Now, at this point, clearly things are different back then because now I just feel like it'd be an issue. It'd be a HIPAA thing now. But they, of course, asked the nurse like what her condition was, and they told her that, they told them what happened. She said it's really unclear about the situation, but they think that she's going to make a full recovery. That's what they're telling Connie. When Kevin and Connie are visiting Tanya, they're talking to her, and she's actually getting a response from her. Like, she held her hand, and Tanya squeezed her hand back.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And that was the first sign of any kind of response they had from her in like 2 or 3 days.
Okay.
So when they finally saw that, they noticed like throughout the day her vitals were getting better and everything. So they were thinking, she's going to get better. So they're expecting a recovery. As soon as Clarence found out that she had visitors, he literally he called Connie right away and cussed her out.
I just want to know how he found out.
I think he might have called up there and maybe somebody told him.
Yeah, that's just too much information being given out by
yeah
medical staff. But
so he found out that she was up there. So the next day he went and visited her. The only other time he went up there to visit her. Within a couple hours later, she was pronounced dead.
Oh.
And it's unknown circumstances. According to medical staff, he had visited her, and then a few hours later her vitals just plummeted.
So did they do an autopsy?
They didn't.
They definitely should have.
He was never. That's what I'm saying. Okay. I think this is ridiculous because, for one, I feel like he should have been looked at for the accident itself.
Yeah, they shouldn't have allowed him to even come up there.
Yeah.
But
things were different back then, I guess. I don't know.
But he was the husband and the father. He checked all the boxes for.
But we're about to go into just how much this system has allowed people like him to fall through the cracks.
That's a lot of what happens in these types of cases. They could have been prevented at some point, but they weren't. And
on the other half of that, he ended up allowing Tanya's body to be donated for her organs. Her body was turned over to the Oklahoma Organ Sharing Network. Her heart was given to a 66-year-old woman from Arizona who got to return home to her husband and her grandchildren. Her liver was given to a 39-year-old New York woman who also had 2 children. One kidney went to a 24-year-old dad from Texas, and the other kidney went to a 14-year-old girl from Oklahoma.
Well,
So
good.
she actually saved quite,
Several lives.
which is hers. So
That's good.
yeah, I hate that she had to lose her life for that, but some good, I guess, did come out of it. I hate that she did have to go out like she did because it wasn't her fault. But anyways, about a day or two afterwards, on May 1st, Clarence calls DCS, and they call DCS.
This
so
is
that they
Child
can come.
Protective Services, right?
Yes,
Okay.
DCS. I'm sorry, I didn't even. I'm used to saying that because that's what it's called here. But yeah,
Yeah,
Child
Department
Protective
of Children's Services.
Yeah.
But
It's different in other places.
Child Protective
yeah.
Services.
In Child Protective Services. And he asked if they could just come pick Michael up for a week. And the reason why is because he's got a lot he has to do. And he's got a plan. Yeah, he's got a plan.
So they were just babysitters?
Yeah,
Like,
I guess so. Like, I think I could
call
just
Child Protective Services, come pick up your kid if you got.
Hold on, I think I could
errands
just call this number and they'll just come and get the kid.
Come get him. Okay, that's.
So they're like, yeah, we'll come get him. So they did. And he was like, well, I'm going to come and get him on the 7th. I'm going to come back and get him on Monday. So, yeah.
Okay. So I wonder what they're thinking about this because, I mean, I can understand you relinquishing a child being given up to Child Protective Services if, like, you yourself are ill and you can't take care of the child if you've been in an accident, maybe if you've been incarcerated or I can think of several situations like if you're on your own with that child and something happens to you, but just because you're busy or because you got a lot going on, I'm just wondering what they thought about that.
He's a weird toad. A horny weird toad.
A horny weird toad, yes.
On May 4th, they had Tanya's funeral. They said that Tanya's funeral there was quite a colorful audience. It was full of strippers, bouncers.
Okay.
Strippers, bouncers, and prostitutes and drug dealers. So, I mean.
Sounds like a party.
Yeah. Clarence shows up to his wife's funeral, and he had just dyed his hair. Now, keep in mind, he's got this old long ponytail in the back, but he's bald up top. Just trying to give you a little picture there of how redneck this guy looks. And he had just dyed his hair, and so they even said you could still see the hair dye dripping from the back of his neck. So he didn't even really do it good. But he ended up showing up with 2 sheriff deputies because, I don't know if I spoke about this in the last episode, but he was close with a couple of law enforcement officers from the area. I feel like that's how he got away with the shit that he did. He just was an arrogant asshole that loved to talk, and he loved to talk about himself. So I'm sure he found some kind of way to swindle them in.
Okay.
He shows up with these 2 deputies. He brings them so they're almost like his bodyguards. He comes up and he has this picture. And
I bet if a big truck came, they would jump out of the way. I bet if something bad enough happened, they would leave the toad.
That motherfucker needs to get hit by a truck that's on fire. That's what he needs to get by.
Yes.
That son of a bitch needs to be on fire.
Anyway. Sorry.
Clarence places this picture on top of Tanya's casket, and it's of a man to look to be in his early 30s and a little girl that looked to be about 4 or 5 years old, and she had blonde hair.
It was them?
Yes, it was them. First of all, he got up there and he did a 30-minute sermon, and he starts out by saying that nobody really knew who Tanya really was.
Of course not.
Really, and he was talking about you don't know her secrets.
She had
you don't
a lot
know
of them.
her life, and he saved her life.
Jesus.
And he was the love of her life. Just went on, and he ended his sermon with just let it go. Just let it be. She's gone. We can't do anything about it. Just let it be. It's almost like she's quoting the Beatles song.
Into the Beatles song,
really,
yeah.
Let it be. What is it?
Let it be.
Let it be.
Yeah. I would have walked out.
Everybody was completely disgusted.
Yeah, I probably would have walked out of that.
Yeah. when he was done, it was almost like he dropped the mic and just...
Mic drop.
Yeah, mic drop, and then walks out of there. So this is what this dumbass did, though, that same day. The same fucking day he buries his wife, he calls the life insurance...
daughter. I don't even like calling her his wife, but okay. I guess she was kind of... Okay, he calls life insurance?
He calls the life insurance company, and he's trying to collect her life insurance.
Because he has her insured, of course.
Yes,
Okay.
he had took out a life insurance policy on her months prior. So, of course, he tries to... He tells him, his wife had passed away, and he gives him her name, and he gives him his, and he gives him the social that's supposed to go with the name that he's using now. And they run it, and they realize, hey, this is not a good social number. Are you telling me the wrong one? I mean, what's going on? He gives him like another one, and that doesn't work. And so finally, he gives him his original social security number. And that social security number was connected to a real man by the name of Franklin Delano Floyd. And I almost said Roosevelt, but it's
Yeah, so he was definitely named after the president. Okay.
So that is Clarence's real name, Franklin Floyd.
Franklin Floyd.
Yes.
Still think he's a nasty toad. Franklin
Fucking
Clarence Warren Toad. Anyway.
The insurance agent on the other end of the phone, he realized that this social security number that was given was for a man that's been on the run for almost 20 years. So he turns it over. I guess they have something that they're able to run certain things through.
Yeah, I wonder how they did that.
They were able to.
Especially in the 90s.
So they told him, of course, like, yep, we got it.
Yeah, we'll send you a check.
Yeah, that's how they were.
Check's
like,
in the mail.
We'll be following up with you, sir.
The check is in the mail. You don't have to call back.
So, anyways, after he realized he just gave him his social security number, the name that he's running from, pretty much, he realizes what he did. And so he takes off. And they end up catching him leaving Oklahoma. And they arrest him on his old charge that he had ran from years ago. Now, I'll give you a little backstory on who Franklin Floyd is.
Wait a minute. Hold on, I got it. Franklin Floyd is a dirty frog. He's not a friend of mine.
Fuck that guy.
If somebody would like to hit him with a diesel, then I guess that would be just fine. Anyway, what were you going to say?
We need to start writing songs. That's what we need to start doing, Christina. Writing songs with this shit.
Tell me about this nasty toad.
Okay, so we'll give him like we said, we're going to talk about his childhood a little bit. Because, he was one of those at one time. Floyd was born in Barnesville, Georgia, and he was actually the youngest of 5 kids. Well, his father's name was Thomas Floyd, and his mother's name was Della Floyd. Now, his dad was reportedly an alcoholic, abusive asshole, but he had kidney and liver problems, so he ended up dying from that not too long after Franklin was, I think they said that he was probably about 3 or 4 whenever that happened. Around this time, Della could not handle taking care of all these kids, so she apparently was forced to
How many kids did they have?
Altogether 6.
Okay.
So she was forced to give the children up. So in 1946, Floyd and his siblings, they were put into a children's home called the Georgia Baptist Children's Home in Hateville. And it's hate with a P, not Hateville.
Not Hateville? Hateville. Okay.
Hateville. Franklin, now his name is Frank now. Now for the remainder of this show, we're going to call him Frank because that's his name. Supposedly Frank was bullied by other children in this home, and he was apparently bullied because he was more feminine than others. And it was later reported that he was sodomized with a broomstick when he was 6 years old.
Oh.
So I don't know how true that is, but that sounds like, I don't know, that sounds pretty bad. It was also reported that there was some pretty harsh punishment done in that home. When he was a teenager, he was caught masturbating in his room one day, and they stuck his hand into, like, boiling water.
Oh.
For catching him masturbating, which is usually what teenage boys do.
Right. I mean, I've heard of some of these homes
that do that. Yeah, especially in that time.
Yeah, that time period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
because we're talking about the 40s, so yeah, or early 50s, so it was more, I guess, acceptable. It was very common around that time, and actually before that, especially when the Great Depression was going on, that a lot of people were having to give up their children because they couldn't afford them anymore.
Yeah.
They would actually sell them, which is frowned upon now, but...
Well, yeah, I mean, it should have...
So Frank ended up having a pretty troubled childhood, it seems like. He constantly got into fights, and he was stealing all the time. In 1959, they actually decided to put him out because they couldn't handle him anymore, or they didn't want to handle him anymore. So they gave custody to his older sister, Dorothy. And they did that after he had actually reportedly ran from the home, and he broke into a house and stole some food. So after that, they were just like, nope, come get him, we're done.
He was probably starving. I mean...
Yeah, I mean...
but
at the same time...
make any excuses for this guy.
I think that this is... I feel bad for the younger him.
Right.
Like, I don't feel bad for the older him because I think we've talked about that before. Like, your childhood
he was just
shit.
a sweet little tadpole, and now he's just this filthy toad.
He started out just like everybody else as a little tadpole.
Filthy, horny toad.
Why did we start calling him
And I don't have
toad?
a problem with real toads. I mean, frogs are cool.
Why did we start calling him
I don't
a
know.
toad?
I think I came up with it. I don't know.
Nasty toad. Nasty.
But I mean...
A warty toad. A warty, horny toad.
But I mean, really, I don't have anything against frogs.
No, I like frogs.
I like frogs,
Not
too.
this one, though. But I think they might have interviewed his other siblings, and they might have corroborated, like...
all this backstory. Okay.
The home, so...
Okay.
I think that this may be true, because,
I mean, I don't really doubt it. I mean,
it's just hard to believe anything that comes out of his mouth.
Well, that's true, yeah.
So, but I think that they had, like, talked to his other siblings, and they were able to confirm that, so... Frank ended up getting kicked out of his sister's house not long after, where he ended up traveling to Indianapolis, and he did that so he could try to find his mom, Della, because he hadn't seen her in years. When he got there, he found out that she had become a prostitute.
Okay.
I don't know if that's what he was expecting or what, but Floyd had Della help him forge some legal documents. The reason why he had her do that is because he wanted to enlist himself into the U.S. Army, which he did. He was only 16 years old. They caught on to it later. 6 months into the service, they discovered that he was underage and that his papers had been falsified. So they kicked him out.
Mm-hmm.
After that, he kind of just turned into like a drifter, just kind of moving around from place to place. His mom did end up dying on July 2nd of 1968. When we talk about his early criminal history, I know that I had just told you that he was running from an old charge. Well, here's where it all begins. His actual felony background started on February 19th, 1960. He had actually broken into like a Sears department store in California. And he ended up, he was trying to steal a gun out of there. And the police ended up coming out because the burglar alarm had went off. And he got into a gunfight with the police and he was shot in the stomach. Unfortunately, he survived. But after that, he was sent to a youth institution for a year. When he was released, he was arrested again for violating his parole for going on a fishing trip to Canada with a friend. In May of 1962, Frank had returned to Hapeville, and he found a job at the local airport there, the Atlanta airport in Georgia. Not too long after he had gotten that job there, he abducted a 4-year-old little girl from a local bowling alley and sexually assaulted her in the woods nearby.
This when you think you can't hate this guy anymore.
Oh, he's a pervert. He's a complete...
He's a lot of things. Okay.
And this is why, like, they let him slip through the cracks. He was convicted of kidnapping and child molestation, and he was sentenced to 10 to 20 years at the Georgia State Prison in Reedsville. That November, he was moved to
Milledgeville? Milledgeville. I would say that's
Milledgeville. Yeah, I don't know. Some kind of state hospital for psychiatric testing. But while being taken out for like an errand in 1963, Frank had escaped and he fled to Macon. That's where he ended up robbing a Citizens and Southern National Bank for $6,000. He was convicted of the robbery and was sentenced to the Federal Reformatory in Chillicothe, Ohio.
I think it's Chillicothe.
It's Chillicothe.
It's Chillicothe?
Yeah.
Okay.
You remember my friend Ashley? She's from Ohio.
Oh, yeah. I think I know her.
She's actually from Chillicothe.
Chillicothe.
But if
Okay.
if I am wrong somehow, somebody please correct me. But I'm pretty sure it's Chillicothe.
Chillicothe. Okay.
Yeah. He tried to escape from there too. After that, he was transported to maximum facility in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania. There, he says that he was continuously raped by other inmates, causing him to climb on the roof of the prison and threaten to commit suicide at one point. Apparently, he didn't do it.
Do it. Anyway.
Be like, I'd be the one in the back. Just
not
do it,
that
Frank!
not that I'm advocating for suicide at all, but I just think that this guy, yeah,
just do it.
If you're
Frank.
this guy,
do it. But nobody else, don't do it.
Nobody else, no, seek help.
Yeah, please. Oh, yeah, absolutely. He was eventually sent back to a Florida prison. Or, I'm sorry, Florida. He was eventually sent back to a Georgia prison in 1968, and there he had befriended a guy named David Dial. Now, David's going to come back up here in just a few minutes, so keep that in mind. So, in November of 1972, Floyd was actually released from prison, and he was sent to a halfway house. On January 27th, 1973, now this is just a week after his release into the halfway house, he approached a woman at a gas station, and he forced her into a car, where he attempted to grope her and sexually assault her. The woman, she managed to get away from him. And she was able to give a description of who he was, and she had him arrested. But Floyd had convinced Dahl, who had been released from prison, to post his bond. So this guy literally put up money to get him out, and after he got him out, he went on the run. And
so he got screwed?
Yeah, and that's actually what his warrant was for, is for running for all those years.
Okay, just for the failure to appear on this felony charge? Okay.
In 1974, Floyd was using the alias of Brandon Williams, and this was after he went on the run, after Dahl had got him out of prison. And he met a woman named Sandy Chipman, and he met her at a truck stop in North Carolina.
Okay.
Chipman was the mother of 4 children from 2 different fathers. She had a child named Suzanne, who was born in 1969 from her first husband, Cliff Savakis. She also had Allison, that was born in 1971, Amy, born in 1972, and Philip, nicknamed Stevie, born 1974, from her second husband, Dennis Brandenburg. Floyd and Chipman, they started dating. They got married literally a month into the relationship, and Floyd convinced Chipman to leave her family with him to Dallas, Texas.
Take her family.
Yeah, take her family.
And move with him to
Yeah.
Dallas? Okay.
Chipman, she kind of had a little bit of a dirty past, too. She was actually sentenced to 30 days in jail for passing bad checks in 1975. So while she was serving her time, she left the children in the custody of Frank.
Bad choice.
Yes.
Bad choice. He's not the babysitting type.
After she was released...
She should have gone to care.com.
It wasn't around back then.
Yeah.
Well, she really wasn't with him for that long. I don't know if I would have just left my kids with this guy after just really only knowing him for a month. Yeah. Honestly, I wouldn't have married him after just knowing him for a month.
Yeah.
But hey, sometimes it works out for people. I'm nobody to judge. When she got out, everybody was gone pretty much. He took off with her kids. So
oh, wow.
He ended up giving Allison and Amy to state's custody. And he ended up keeping Suzanne and Philip. Well, Philip was never found, and neither was Susan.
Okay. So what did he do with these kids? Does anybody know?
Well, Sharon Marshall's real name was Suzanne Savakis.
Oh, so he kept her, so, okay.
Yes. Nobody ever found Philip. They think he killed him.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's
a mindfuck, right?
Yeah, it really is. So Suzanne wasn't his actual daughter.
Not his biological daughter.
Okay. So, I mean, it probably shouldn't, but it kind of makes me feel a little better. Even though I guess it's still considered incest because she was raised with him being her father.
Right.
It would be the same as like an adopted relationship. But biologically, as far as like their kid's concerned, I guess he's fine.
Yeah. So he never actually really had kids of his own. That's
good.
He actually has never to this day even admitted that he ever had sex with Suzanne or Sharon Marshall. but it's very clear that he was...
Suzanne and Cheryl Marshall.
They're the
Sharon
same person.
Marshall are
Yeah,
the same person.
her
Okay.
Yeah. I think he had been molesting her ever since she was a kid.
I'm sure.
Because he had a thing for little girls.
Yeah.
This freak literally looked at this little girl and was like, I'm going to raise her as mine, and then I'm going to make her my wife.
That's yeah.
It's unsettling. That's the unsettling part.
It is sickening.
Pretty much, Sandy was never able to recover her kids after that. She wasn't able to find them until later because they got put into the system under different names. So she lost all her children. She was able to find Allison and Amy later, but nobody was ever able to find Philip, and there's no record of where he went. So they think that Frank had killed him, but there's no proof of it.
And it makes me wonder if Suzanne knew what happened to her brother. If she had witnessed him killing her brother, and maybe that's why she never, really went against him,
right?
And why she was so terrified of him,
right? Because she was 5 at the time, and when you're 5, you can still remember things.
Yeah, so I'm wondering what she saw.
You remember at her funeral, he was talking about she had a lot of secrets. I think she knew a lot of his secrets.
Oh, I'm sure she did. Yeah.
That's one of the main plot twists right there. We got that out of the way. I wanted to just cover his background, and I wanted to throw that in there because you kept saying how grossly out. It is gross. It really, really is. But it did make me feel a lot better knowing that he wasn't her biological father either.
I mean, don't get us wrong. It's so fucked up.
Oh, it's super fucked up.
Any way you put it, it's really, really fucked up. But I had all these questions because I was like, well, what happened to her mother? And I had assumed that he was her father.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't know what happened.
Most people wouldn't have a reason
for me was like, what happened to the mom?
Right. And she would tell everybody that her mom died in a car accident.
Yeah. So I was wondering if that was the truth or, yeah. All right. So,
yeah.
It answers questions for me.
So, of course, his second wife was Tanya Hughes. Michael Anthony Hughes was technically, by state, he was Clarence and Tanya's son. So, on the birth certificate, Clarence is on the birth certificate.
Right.
Well, it turns out DCS decides that they're keeping this child because, first of all, he just went on the run, which, by the way, they apprehended him. And I think they apprehended him in Georgia. And they ended up sending him back to prison because he had been on the run for so long.
Right.
To serve out the rest of his sentence. Now, of course, Michael ended up going to a foster home by the name of Ernest and Merle Bean. This couple, they're an older couple. They had been taking care of foster children for the past 6 years, and they've seen close to 60 kids in those 6 years. And they have a lot of experience.
Revolving door. Okay.
So when they got Michael, they noticed that this child, first of all, he was only about 2.5, 3 years old, but he did not know how to communicate except for grunts and screams. He would constantly cry and scream, and he would get so frustrated that he would bang his head up against the wall.
Was he autistic?
He was not. He was just in a
so obviously this was caused by trauma and neglect.
Yes, and the child, when she got him, the child wouldn't take milk. He was still drinking out of a regular bottle, and it was Pepsi with water in it. That's what he wanted to drink all the time, because that's what they gave him.
Okay, God, I'm surprised his teeth hadn't rotted out of his head.
They said that he was a real challenge there for a long time.
Yeah.
And, of course, I think he had some therapy done, and they were able to see that this child had been abused. They could tell he had been abused. But over time, they worked through it, and he ended up being a really good kid. They ended up teaching him things and just showing him love. And once they were able to show him love, he seemed to really attach to that. In the book, Merle talks about how, like, she would just grab him and just hug him, and he was fine. Like, that's how she'd get him to go to sleep. Like, he was just one of those children just craved attention, the love.
Yeah.
So the whole time that this is going on, Frank's in jail, and he's desperately worried about his son. He wants to see his son.
Ugh.
For some reason, he wants this child. He wants to be able to have this child when he gets out. Now, according to law, I mean, he's a registered sex offender, but they can't keep him from his own child. The state starts taking Michael to go visit him every month. They said that every time that Michael would go see his father, he'd come back and he just wasn't right when he'd go visit.
So he got out of jail?
No, he didn't. They were
taking him to the jail.
Yes, they were taking him to the federal prison. He was actually locked up in the federal prison, so they were bringing him down there to visit him.
Oh, wow.
And this is in Oklahoma. Now, keep in mind, Frank was in jail from the time Michael was about 2 years old till he was about 6. So in those 4.5 years right there, he had grown accustomed to being with Ernest and Merle Bean. So he started doing well in school. He went to kindergarten there. They were there for his first day of kindergarten. After so long, he was a normal kid.
Okay.
Before he got out of prison, he was going through these custody hearings. They were making him go to these custody hearings because they were trying to establish custody when he was released. By law, they wanted a paternity test done. He wasn't having it. He refused to take this test because he felt like, I don't need to. This child's mine. Don't need to do it. And they're just like, yeah, well, by law, we have to do it.
Why not prove it?
Yeah. So they take the test, and it's proven that Michael is not Frank's kid.
Even better. Even better.
I think I keep on with Suzanne. Her real name's Suzanne Savakis, so I'm going to call her Suzanne now. I think Suzanne always knew that he wasn't his, and I think even he knew that. Okay. But for some reason, he wanted this child. They were like, okay, so we don't need to proceed with this any further.
You don't exist.
You don't exist in his life. Like, you're not his father, so you don't need to worry about this anymore. He said that he still wanted this child. He wanted, after he get out,
nobody gives a fuck what you want, Frank.
So they're just like, yeah, no, you're not getting him. He's not even your biological kid. It's not
and you're
happening.
A sex offender.
Mm-hmm.
Of course you want a child, but you can't have one.
So when he got out, he, of course, still attempted to regain custody of Michael, but on the basis of his criminal record, and him not having any biological relation to him,
right?
His request was denied.
Yeah,
automatically.
Just gift wrap a child and hand it to a sex offender.
What does Frank do?
I know, what does Frank do? I think I know what Frank does. What does he do?
So on September 12th, 1994, keep in mind, Michael just started his first year of first grade. He was going to Indian Meriden Elementary School, and this was in Choctaw, Oklahoma. Frank ended up coming up to his school, and he went to meet with the principal, which his name was James Davis. When he came in there, he said that he wanted to see Michael. Of course, the principal at first was like, okay, who are you? And he pulled out a gun, and he was just like, I'm Michael's father. I want you to call Michael from the classroom and bring him to him right now. So he literally walks with Mr. Davis, forces Principal Davis at gunpoint to pull Michael out of his classroom. He then forces Michael and Mr. Davis into Mr. Davis's pickup truck. He had forced Davis out of the truck in a wooded area, so he had driven him a few miles from the school, and he parked over on the side of the road, and he took Mr. Davis into some woods where he handcuffed him to a tree and left him there. And he wasn't found for, I think it was 2 hours later they found him.
Oh, wow. I'm sure he was screaming.
Yeah, he was. He did survive, and he was rescued, but Frank stole his truck and had the boy with him. Nobody ever saw Michael again.
What? They never found him? What? I've got to know where, all these people have gone. So, do we have any answers for that?
So, here's the fucked up part about all this, because we're going to go ahead and bring it to a close here in just a few minutes. After this happened, they went on a massive search for him because they couldn't find him anywhere. This was before the Amber Alert stuff.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they just couldn't believe that this guy has slipped through the cracks so many times. So they started following Mr. Dial, which is it seems to be one of his only friends. Mr. Dial had been in contact with him, but he wasn't giving up his information where he was.
Why would this Dial guy even talk to him? He stuck him with that bail.
He's still his friend. I don't know.
Okay. And he's an asshole and a pervert. He's a toad.
Yeah, he is.
Anyway.
They still can't find this boy. They end up catching him 2 months later in Louisville, Kentucky. The reason why they caught him there is because he started to assume his old alias, which was Brandon, which was the one that he met Suzanne's mother with, Brandon Williams. He assumed the name Brandon Williams. There, he ended up working for a automotives where he was selling cars. And the way they found him was he ended up selling his truck to somebody. And in this truck, he left a book of photos. And these were photos of children, young girls, nude, and
Oh.
also of like women tied up in provocative positions.
Oh, wow.
And they were able to track that truck back to him, and that's how they were able to get him in Louisville, Kentucky, because he sold his truck to somebody and left that evidence in there because he's a dumbass. So they apprehend him, and they want to know where Michael's at. And he tells them that Michael's not with him. He's with somebody else. He's safe. He keeps on just telling them that he's safe, he's not dead. And then they said that you'll never find him. And they tried to say that if you found him, he'll probably end up dead. He tried to use this story about how he owed somebody money and that.
And they took a child.
Yeah, they took the child.
Kids are expensive.
Yeah.
Like, if somebody owes me money, I do not want your child. Because I do not have. Yeah.
Yeah. So he made up all these scenarios. By this time, he's already looked at. For one, he's locked up on what he had done. He's locked up on this kidnapping charge. They can't find Michael. Not only that, a year later, they ended up finding some bones that were in a wooded area right off of Interstate 275 in Pinellas County, Florida.
Yeah. So that's where him and Suzanne were living for a while, right?
Right.
Okay.
That's where Cheryl went missing. They were able to find her remains in a wooded area out there by the interstate. It was determined that it was her, and she had been killed. She had been bludgeoned, and she was shot twice in the head. And they're pretty sure that it was Frank that did this.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Frank, too. Could it be Frank? Could it be him that did this? I think it is.
So, long story short, he ends up getting charged with the kidnapping of Michael Hughes. Also, he was also charged with the murder of Cheryl Commesso, where he received the death penalty in Florida. So now he is on Florida's death row.
Joy to the world.
All the boys and girls.
Yep. Prison,
to this day, we're not really even
out.
for sure what happened to Michael. So apparently he has confessed to his sister. He killed Michael the day that he had kidnapped him.
Oh, man.
And the reason why is because the boy started getting really frustrated and he was getting upset. And he thought that...
shit. Like...
I think his whole plan was to keep this little boy, and I don't know if he had a thing for little boys or not, but I don't think he had any good intentions for this little boy. Let's just put it that way.
He didn't have good intentions for anything he ever did.
We still never got any reasoning about Suzanne. When anybody ever tried to talk to him about Suzanne, he would always say that he did her a favor.
And I guess he's talking about his ex-wife or her mother.
Yes, he did.
Somehow
he said that he
was not good for her, but the childhood he provided was so much better.
It's exactly what he means.
What a dick.
He will not talk about a lot of things that we have a lot of questions about. He still will not admit that he had sexual relations with her, which, come on, you married her, so.
Well, all that time he claimed that he was this kid's father.
That too,
Michael's father. So it's like you kind of admitted it then, man.
Oh, which, by the way, Michael's father was a guy named Greg. Greg was not aware that Michael even exists until after Tanya died, because Frank called him and told him, hey, you want to come pick this kid up? I can't take him anymore. His mama just died.
Oh, wow.
And the guy was like,
what?
I have a kid? Like, Frank knew that this kid was not his.
So he knew who the father of the child was. Okay.
Yeah, the whole time. He knew who this kid was. I mean, he knew that this kid wasn't his. So why are you fighting for a kid that's not even yours? And you knew it the whole time.
Because he's a psychopath. Oh, man.
But that
guy disgusts me.
That concludes our story. Sorry, guys. I was kind of jumping around.
Kid Michael, I'm looking at this picture. He's just the cutest little thing.
Cute. He had these brown eyes, and I would have loved to see. He would have been about my age. He was about 2 years older than me. He was born in 88.
Yeah.
So he would have been about my age now, a little bit older, and I hate that. Because the Beans were in the process of adopting him.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if Suzanne's mother, after this happened, did anybody hear anything from her? Was she still alive? Did she have anything to say about all this?
No, not that I've read. I don't think that she's passed away or anything, but that had to have been really hard for her. I don't really
Well,
know
if
what her
she,
life
you
was
know, knew
like
about it,
beforehand.
yeah.
I don't know what her life was like beforehand, but I'm pretty sure she didn't expect. I mean, because she had literally just married this man.
Yeah.
So, and then she goes to jail to do 30 days, which 30 days really ain't shit to a lot of people. 30 days is 30 days. So when she gets out, she's expecting her husband and her children, which they're all gone. And then your husband turns around and takes your daughter and then.
And son.
And
Yeah.
son. And Philip was never found. I desperately hope that Philip was just renamed and put somewhere and nobody was just ever able to recover that. I hope he's still alive.
There's still just so many questions for me. I mean, I got a lot of answers, but there's still a lot of questions because, like, the first 2 kids he turned them over to the state custody.
Right.
I'm just surprised these children didn't say, hey, I have a brother and a sister that are still with this man. I don't understand why nobody went looking for them other than the mother.
Right.
But, I don't know why. I guess I don't understand the whole thing. A lot of questions.
Yeah, no.
Still left unanswered, but this fucker's not going to talk, so.
Oh, no, and
we probably won't get these answers.
And actually, nobody knew who Suzanne really was. Nobody knew it was Sharon Marshall until 2014. It wasn't until 2014 he decided to open up and say who she really was.
Really?
Yes, it took them that long. And he's been in prison since 1994. So, yeah.
Wow.
And now he just got sentenced in 2005 for Cheryl Comesso's murder. So they were holding him on that kidnapping for a long time. But now he's finally in Florida and he's serving out his death sentence. And yeah,
Do we have a date for that?
I don't know.
I've always found that a little morbid when people celebrate someone getting executed, like they did with Ted Bundy. Like they're all lined up out there throwing a party.
Weird.
It's just a little too weird, and I'm a weird person, but that's a little much for me. But no, like
when
this guy is definitely a waste of taxpayer money.
Oh, absolutely.
At this point.
Yeah. Well, actually,
he's got to go.
I don't know how they do it in other states, but in Tennessee, if you're a correctional officer and you work on death row, 2 days before an inmate is executed, they put him on death watch, and there's an officer that's supposed to watch them the whole 2 days, like has to keep their eyes on them at all times, and only one time in your career can you do that. You could be the officer to watch them on death watch and then escort them to the death chamber.
Oh.
So, like, if one officer does it, they can never do it again because it's a traumatic thing.
Psychologically traumatizing. Yeah.
And I've seen that plenty. I've seen that plenty of times with other people.
Wow.
Unfortunately, there are some people that work in that field that enjoy it, and I think that's really weird.
Yeah, that is a little strange.
I'm glad I was never able to, see all that. But yeah. I did get to see it, like, the inside of it, like the death chamber, so weird. I've seen a real electric chair.
I have too, on a field trip. Yeah, we've all seen the electric chair.
They never took us to the prison on our field trips. I don't know. I didn't see it till I got older.
Yeah, it was cool.
They don't do that anymore.
For a baby true crime fan.
Did you go
It was a nice visit.
Did you go to the Walls or did you go to Riverbend?
I actually didn't go to Riverbend.
You went to the Tennessee State Prison, or did you go to Brushy Mountain?
I don't know where I went. It was a long time ago.
Well, anyways, there's a lot more to the case, but I hit all the key areas. I know I kind of bounced around a little bit, and it could get a little confusing with all the aliases.
Yeah, but, all these names.
Yeah, so I'm really sorry. Christina's a way better storyteller than I am, so I'm trying to get it together. But yeah, I thank you guys for listening.
Yeah, thanks. So, anywho, yeah, check us out next week. I'll be covering the next one, and check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Audible, anywhere you get your podcasts, YouTube. And hit us up on Facebook at
TC Down Yonder.
Check us on Instagram at
TC_Down Yonder.
Or send us an email at
tcdownyonder@gmail.com. And we also have a Twitter now.
We're on Twitter.
We are on Twitter. We're Twitter-pated.
Twitter-pated.
They give us the Twitter name, so our Twitter name is @downcrime.
At Down Crime. I like it.
Yeah, Down Crime.
So check us out at Down Crime.
At Down Crime. But yes, also we'll post a link also in our show notes for you to donate to our poor asses.
What?
Our support link.
Yeah, so if you want to give something, we're trying to come up with like some appreciation merchandise and whatnot.
Yeah, we'll be sending out some stickers and some magnets hopefully soon.
We're growing.
Yeah, so show us some love and we'll show you
some
stickers.
Some support. Yeah, if you can, that's great. If you can't, we understand.
Just share us.
Yeah, like and share.
Yes.
All right.
And rate.
Until next time.
Bye y'all.